African chicks versus African American chicks. It's very interesting to me how in the U.S. African Americans have a huge superiority complex in regards to Africans, and specifically when it comes to the woman. And it's very negative. And where do I think it comes from? I think that it's born out of the white media, and it's pervasive not only in the minds of African Americans, but all Americans, because we're all exposed to generally the same media. And I feel like it's extremely misplaced, and it's extremely false because, traveling to Africa, because I personally, I've traveled to Africa. I've been traveling for years. And, I mean, the most beautiful black woman that I see, that I have seen, have been in Africa. The most beautiful. And I've been to Atlanta. I've been to, various parts in the South. But Atlanta specifically because, Atlanta, people throw up as the black Mecca and, the place where you're going to find the baddest black chicks. And yeah, there are some bad black chicks in Atlanta, but none of them can hold a candle to the chicks that I've seen in Africa. Not a candle. Not facially, body-wise, and especially, when it comes to personality. So I feel like it's extremely misplaced. I feel that, from my travels in Africa, that African women, number one, are extremely more conscious of their appearance than African American women. Why do I think that is? Number one, I think there's a huge respect for the men, and there's a lot more concern in regards to what men find attractive, and being able to attract quality men. So I feel that African women generally tend to put in more effort into their appearance, because what tends to be first and foremost in their minds is, being married, finding a good man. And not only that, but, falling into that mainstream, standard of how a woman should look like, in whatever African country they are. So, I think that appearance-wise, African women tend to be a lot more conscientious about that, because there's a lot more societal pressure. Whereas I feel African American woman, I think that there's a general disrespect of black men, and African American men really aren't held in any type of regard by African American women. So I feel like African American women tend to be a lot more indifferent, and generally just tend not to give a fuck when it comes to their appearance. And you could tell that by, driving down any street in any urban area where it's predominantly black, excluding Atlanta, or maybe like the needle in the haystack black communities where people are more wealthy. But I'm talking about your average urban black community. And just drive down a random street. The women are going to be looking subpar, extremely subpar. I'd say even worse than white women. Where do I think that comes from? I feel like it comes from an indifference that African American women have in regards to how men are perceiving them and what men want, So I feel like it's that standard that's set, and that precedent that's set in the society that distinguishes, how African women perceive themselves and try to match up to the standard of beauty, and how African American women, because African women are very conscientious about how they're being perceived by their men, whereas African American women just don't give a fuck. I mean, it's apparent when you see, when you go to any black community, it's apparent that they don't give a fuck, and so I mean that's one aspect, of it. Secondly, from my experience, I feel that Africans tend to be a lot more healthier. Those Africans that have decent, have decent wages, that have, a pretty normal life and what we would consider a normal life, a normal income, so to speak. Even so, I feel like a lot Africans tend to be more conscientious about what they're eating, about their weight, about being healthy and working out. They're a lot more conscientious than African Americans. I mean, it's surprising, when I'm in Africa and I go to a gym, and I may go at like 6 in the morning, and it's all black women at the gym, all fit, all looking good, all busting their ass on the treadmills or whatever machines they're in, trying to look good. Now I want you to find me one gym in the U.S., excluding Atlanta, where you're going to see a gym packed of black women working out under 140 pounds. You're not going to fucking find it. No fucking way. So yeah, I feel that, and then on top of that, the diet. Africans tend to have a more healthy diet. A lot of the foods that they eat are more fresh. The meat that they eat is more fresh. And, there's less, I noticed that in the stores, and, when I'm at dinner with Africans, they consume a lot less processed food, which is a catalyst for obesity, right? So, number 2, they're more healthy, like I said. Their diet is better. And your diet obviously contributes to your overall appearance. And number 3, the attitude, which I feel like accounts for 95% of a person's attractiveness. Even physical attractiveness. Because, if a chick is stank, no matter how good looking she is, you're not gonna be able to to see her beauty past the mean mug that she has on her fucking face, So, what I mean by that is, African women are very submissive. Most African cultures and communities are very patriarchal. There's still a lot of respect for the men, regardless of whatever the economic condition is. In these African countries, that respect for the men has been maintained. That submission has been maintained. And, in correlation to that, femininity within woman has been maintained. And when you go to these African countries, it's crazy because, you have this view of black women, in the States, of being loud and attitudinal and confrontational, what have you. And it's crazy because, you bring that mentality to Africa, and then when you interact with African women, you realize a lot of these women are more submissive, if not as submissive, more submissive than Asian women. And it's a mind fuck because, in the back of your mind, you're looking at this African chick, and, she looks like the ghetto Taikwisha, chick that's, gonna be attitudinal or what have you, but she's acting like a feminine lady, and it really does change your mindset. So I think, it was just important for me to make this video because, there's a lot of stereotypes, false stereotypes, about Africans, about African women. And, I feel like it prevents a lot of men from traveling to Africa and being able to experience African women because, what they have in their mind when they think of African woman, they're thinking about a lekawek. They're thinking about some tribal bitch, that has a bald head, dark as hell, big lips. And, that to them, that's not appealing. But it's not like that. I mean, African women, are some of the most beautiful women in the world. I mean, and Africa is so diverse. There is no one look. Some people may feel a certain way for me, putting down a bald head and extremely dark skin, but the majority of Africa isn't just solely one look. I mean, you have Somalians, you have Northern Africans who we know are Arab looking. Southern Africans tend to, be lighter skinned with, a little bit more finer features. It's really only when you get to Western Africa, like Senegal, Ghana, maybe some parts of Nigeria, where you're going to find chicks that are like super dark, But for the most part, in most parts of Africa, women tend to be, pretty more on like the brownish caramel, side, And and again, the women are bad as hell, bad as fuck. I mean, I have never seen as many, beautiful black women as I've seen in Africa, in comparison to, the U.S. And when I'm driving around the U.S. and I'm looking at these black chicks here, I'm like, damn, these bitches are trash and garbage compared to the bitches in Africa. And really, there's no excuse, because, what's the main excuse that black women make in this country for not being, not being fit, not looking good? Oh, they don't have the money like white women. Oh, they can't work out like white women. They don't, African American women don't have any more money than African women. But African women look 10 times better and are in 10 times better shape than African American women. So what's the excuse now? It's easy for black women in this country to make an excuse, for their weight, for their appearance in relation to white women. But when you put them in juxtaposition right next to African woman, and you have an African woman who's 130 pounds, dope, looking good, what can she say then? All those excuses she makes about white women, she can't make those excuses with an African woman. What is she going to say? Oh, African women aren't poor like us. Please, So I mean, it's important. I think it's important for people to understand the reality, and for to really know that there's a lot of potential in Africa. There's a lot of beautiful women, and I feel like a lot of guys sleep on Africa. And it's definitely a good place for, like, for example, like a brother who, he may want to get with the black woman, but he doesn't want to deal with the bullshit of an African American woman, but he still wants a black woman. Africa is a great place, for guys who may want a black woman to find, a chick, for a relationship, long term, what have you, because there's just a surplus of beautiful, respectful, submissive women. So, that's pretty much all I got to say.